Something happened at Michigan International Speedway last Sunday that the NASCAR world is still processing. Not the race result, not the standings. Something much bigger than that, because in the day since that race ended, two pieces of information have come out about one driver, and together, they tell a story that fans genuinely were not ready for. One of them involves official data from NASCAR that puts this crash in a category all by itself. The other involves a decision that has the entire garage talking. When you hear both of them back to back, this week starts to feel very different from any other week in the 2026 season. To understand why this week matters so much, you have to go back to lap 148 of the Firekeepers Casino 400 at Michigan International Speedway. The race was deep into its final stage. Christopher Bell was running near the front, battling for position alongside Chase Elliott. Both drivers were pushing hard, the way drivers push hard at a 2-mile superspeedway when there is still time left on the clock and points to be earned. Then everything changed in an instant. Elliott's number 9 Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet got loose underneath Bell coming out of a restart. The car wiggled, lost grip, and before Elliott could do anything about it, his Chevrolet shot straight up the racetrack and slammed directly into the left side door of Bell's 20 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota. The contact launched Bell's car sideways into the outs the safer barrier at nearly 200 miles per hour. The rear of Bell's no. 20 Toyota erupted in flames on impact. Elliott's car slid back down the track after the initial hit and struck an inside tire barrier as well. In a matter of seconds, two of the most competitive cars in the field were reduced to wreckage. What happened next said everything about the kind of moment this was. Both drivers climbed out of their cars. Elliott did not wait. He walked straight over to Bell, and the two shared an embrace on the track before either of them was loaded into an ambulance. Elliott did not hesitate when reporters asked him about it afterward. "It was totally my fault. I feel really bad for Bell, just taking him out," Elliott said after being evaluated and released from the care center. "I was trying to run the bottom, make use of our fresh tires, and at least get to second I was hoping, and stay side by side with him. I just got in there and got free. I thought I was going to spin, and was kind of committing to spinning out. As soon as I was committed to spinning, it just hooked up and, unfortunately, sent Christopher into the wall really hard, and me shortly thereafter. It was a huge hit. Huge hit for him, pretty big hit for me too." Bell spent nearly an hour inside the infield care center. He declined all interview requests when he was released. The silence from Bell's camp in those immediate hours told its own story. Joe Gibbs, the team owner, spoke to reporters after the race following Denny Hamlin's win and offered a sobering update. "I think it was his wrist and his ankle," Gibbs said. "We're just going to have to wait." The drivers around the crash knew exactly how severe it had been. Bubba Wallace was running just behind Bell at the moment of impact. He had a direct view of everything that unfolded. Over his team radio, Wallace said, "Please tell me that guy is all right. That was the scariest hit I've ever seen." On the broadcast, Dale Earnhardt Jr. took a moment to put the human side of this in perspective. He pointed out that after witnessing something like that, every other driver still on the track had to take what they just saw, lock it away somewhere deep, and keep racing. Earnhardt noted that fans sometimes forget how much these drivers absorb week after week, the trauma, the danger, the fear, and how much it takes to push all of that aside and keep going. It is a side of this sport that does not always get the attention it deserves, and Bell's crash at Michigan brought it right to the surface. Everyone who watched the replay already suspected this was not a normal crash. The damage to Bell's car made it obvious. The sound of the impact made it obvious. The fire made it obvious. But suspecting something and having NASCAR officials put it on record are two very different things. On the latest episode of the official NASCAR Hauler Talk podcast, Mike Ford, NASCAR's Vice President of Racing Communications, confirmed what the data showed, and the confirmation is remarkable. Bell's crash at Michigan produced the largest Delta V number NASCAR has recorded in the entire next-gen era, which began in 2022. That is across every superspeedway, every intermediate track, every road course, and every short track, every crash, every hard hit, every massive wreck. Bell's impact at Michigan was the most severe of all of them. Delta V is the specific measurement NASCAR uses to evaluate crash severity. Ford explained it clearly on the podcast. Delta V is the measure of speed lost in an incident, Ford said. So if you're going 200 miles per hour, and then all of a sudden you come to a stop because you hit a wall and scrub off X amount of speed, that difference is what the Delta V is. I can't give out the Delta V number for Bell. That data is proprietary in a way. We share that with the team and the driver, and that's their data to do with what they want. But we can confirm that it was the largest number we've seen in the next-gen era. The actual number itself will not be released publicly. NASCAR considers it proprietary information. The data was shared with Bell and Joe Gibbs Racing, and it is their decision whether to make it public. Neither has done so, but the confirmation alone carries serious weight. It goes even further than the next-gen era. Matt Harper, the managing director of safety systems at the NASCAR Research and Development Center, was one of the officials who led the investigation into the crash. Harper joined NASCAR in 2015. In the more than a decade he has spent reviewing crash data, analyzing incidents, and studying the most violent moments in modern Cup Series racing, he confirmed that Bell's impact at Michigan was the hardest hit he has personally evaluated from a data standpoint. He also said it was the hardest hit that he's seen and has looked at from a data perspective since he's been here, and he's been here since 2015, Ford said. So, more than a decade of data and experience out of Matt, and it was the hardest that he's seen. The physical evidence backed that up in a way that was impossible to ignore. Bell's car hit the safer barrier with enough force to cause structural damage to the wall itself. Repair crews had to bring welding equipment onto the track. The race went under a red flag for 20 minutes and 31 seconds while workers repaired the barrier before racing could resume. That kind of damage to a safer barrier is extraordinarily rare and only happens when the force involved is at an extreme level. NASCAR's investigation of the crash was immediate and thorough. Officials conducted a full visual inspection of Bell's No. 20 Toyota in the garage at Michigan right after the accident. They took photographs, downloaded information from the incident data recorder, and began uploading everything to a server accessible by officials back in North Carolina. The car was then transported to Joe Gibbs Racing's shop in Huntersville, North Carolina, where a further review was conducted Monday morning. Harper began remotely examining the photos and crash data within 5 minutes of receiving them from Michigan. The speed of that response reflected just how significant this crash was understood to be from the very first moment. The primary focus of the investigation centered on Bell's restraint systems, specifically his helmet, his Hans tethers, and the head surround foam inside his cockpit. Ford was direct about how important those components proved to be. That really was what was vital in this particular incident, Ford said. The head surround foam in particular drew significant attention from safety officials. NASCAR was encouraged by how well it performed in a crash of this magnitude, and they are now conducting detailed measurements of the foam's thickness, softness, and configuration to determine whether Bell's specific setup should be studied as a potential reference point for other drivers going forward. A big priority is being put around the head surround foam, Ford said. We keep updating this part of the rule book as we learn more and more. The thickness of the head surround is so important. And because we were pleased with how the head surround supported Christopher in this incident, we did a lot of measurements of the type of foam he used, the softness and the thickness. We want to see, hey, is this sort of the magic number? Is this something that other drivers may want to look at? Because this was the biggest hit we've ever seen in the next-gen era, and by and large, Christopher came out of it pretty well. That last sentence is the part worth sitting with. NASCAR just confirmed the hardest recorded impact of the modern era, and Bell walked away. That is not luck. That is the product of years of safety investment paying off at the exact moment it needed to. After being evaluated and released from the infield care center at Michigan, Bell returned home to North Carolina and underwent further medical evaluation. X-rays confirmed the extent of the injury. Bell had suffered a fractured left wrist as a direct result of the crash. Joe Gibbs Racing released an official statement on Tuesday, June 9. Christopher Bell suffered a fractured left wrist after an accident on lap 148 of Sunday's NASCAR Cup Series race at Michigan International Speedway. The team announced, after being evaluated and released from the infield care center, Bell returned home to North Carolina where X-rays confirmed the fracture. Bell has been cleared and will be behind the wheel of the No. 20 Toyota Camry XSE this weekend at Pocono Raceway. According to Fox Sports Motorsports reporter Bob Pockrath, Bell did not require surgery for the fracture. No standby driver has been announced by JGR, though Ryan Truex has served most recently in that relief driver role for the organization. Bell addressed his situation directly through a post on social media that same Tuesday. Thank you to each and everyone who reached out to check on me. I truly feel the love, Bell wrote. I'm grateful for my team of doctors, JGR, NASCAR, and all of the previous drivers who have helped pave the way for the safety standards in our sport. See you in Pocono. From a standings perspective, the crash at Michigan already did damage. Bell posted a 31st place DNF after the accident, dropping 3 positions in the Cup Series standings from 7th down to 10th. He now sits 259 points behind points leader Tyler Reddick and 81 points above the playoff cut line. With 11 regular season races remaining before the playoffs begin, the margin for further setbacks is shrinking. Through 15 races in 2026, Bell has recorded 5 top 5 finishes, 6 top 10 finishes, and has led 398 laps, but 3 DNFs have consistently undercut what should have been a stronger position in the standings. Pocono Raceway is not the kind of track that forgives an injury. The 2.5-mile triangular layout in Long Pond, Pennsylvania is one of the most physically demanding venues on the entire Cup Series schedule. It's 3 completely different corner configurations, each with distinct banking angles and entry speeds require constant steering adjustments and significant physical input from the driver throughout the entire race. Long straightaways build speed to levels that make the corners even more demanding on the body. Even fully healthy drivers describe Pocono as taxing. Racing there with a fractured wrist is a different challenge entirely. Bell's record at Pocono across 8 previous starts includes a best finish of 4th achieved twice in 2021 and 2022. His average finishing result at the track stands at 16.4. He has yet to win at Pocono in his Cup Series career, and he is still searching for his first victory of the 2026 season overall. There is historical precedent worth noting here. In August 2011, Brad Keselowski won at Pocono Raceway just 4 days after breaking his left ankle in a testing accident at Road Atlanta. The injury did not stop Keselowski from competing, and it did not stop him from winning. Bell is now in a comparable situation, a serious injury to the left side of his body, a physically demanding track, and a championship campaign that cannot afford to go backward. Bell still has everything to race for. A win at Pocono this Sunday would lock him into the 2026 playoffs and dramatically change the tone of his season. Given everything that happened at Michigan, it would also become one of the most talked about performances of the year. Step back from the individual story for a moment and look at what this week actually represents for the sport. NASCAR just confirmed that Christopher Bell survived the most violent recorded crash in the history of the next-gen car. 6 days later, he is climbing back into the number 20 Toyota with a broken wrist to race at one of the most physically demanding tracks on the schedule. That combination of facts says something significant, both about Bell as a driver and about where NASCAR safety stands in 2026. Josh Berry, who had a direct view of the crash from nearby on the track, put it plainly. It broke the wall. It was a huge hit. But it does say a lot about the safety advances that NASCAR has made, not only throughout the process of the next-gen car, but also just over the last couple decades. I mean, you look at safer barriers and Hans devices and things that have come along. Man, it's just amazing the progress that's been made. Earnhardt's point about compartmentalizing fear was not just commentary in the moment. It applies directly to what Bell is now being asked to do. He absorbed the hardest recorded hit of the modern era, fractured his wrist, watched the data confirm how severe it really was, and then announced he is racing Sunday. That is not a small thing. The investigation into Bell's head surround foam may also have consequences that extend well beyond this one incident. NASCAR now has a rare and extreme data point from the most violent crash of the next-gen era. The measurements being taken from Bell's specific foam setup, its thickness, its softness, its configuration, could directly influence how NASCAR writes its safety regulations going forward. One crash, one driver, and the entire sport may end up safer because of it. Christopher Bell hit a wall at Michigan International Speedway harder than any driver has hit a wall in the next-gen era. He fractured his wrist. He got cleared, he posted his statement, and he said 2 words that summed everything up. See you in Pocono. That is where this story stands right now.